In the midst of World War II, a Japanese naval ship was attacked by American combat planes and sunk near a remote island in the Pacific Ocean. Out of the 200 crew members, only 31 men survived and made it to the shore of Anatahan Island, where they encountered a surprising sight: a Japanese couple who had been living there since before the war. The couple, Kikuichiro and Kazuko Higa, had been sent to the island by a fishing company to cultivate coconuts and bananas. They welcomed the sailors and taught them how to survive on the island, unaware that the war had ended in 1945. But soon the island became a scene of violence, jealousy, and mystery. The reason? Kazuko Higa, the only woman on the island, who became the object of desire and conflict among the men. For 6 years, the island was cut off from the outside world, and the men lived in a state of lawlessness, suspicion, and fear. This is the true story of the Queen of Anatahan and the 32 men who fought over her. Anatahan Island is part of the Northern Mariana Islands, a U.S. territory in the Western Pacific. It is about 10 kilometers long and 3 kilometers wide and has a population of 0. The island is uninhabited due to its active volcano, which erupts every few years, and its lack of fresh water and infrastructure. But in the 1940s, it was home to a small community of Japanese settlers who had been sent there by a fishing company to exploit its natural resources. Kikuichiro and Kazuko Higa were among the settlers who arrived on the island in 1939. They were not married, but posed as a couple to avoid social stigma. Kikuichiro was a former policeman who had been convicted of murder and escaped from prison. Kazuko was a former geisha who had run away from her abusive husband. They had met in Saipan, the capital of the Northern Mariana Islands, and decided to start a new life together on Anatahan. On June 15, 1944, the Tai Maru, a Japanese cargo ship carrying supplies and soldiers, was sailing near Anatahan Island when it was attacked by American fighter planes. The ship was hit by several bombs and torpedoes and sank within minutes. Out of the 200 crew members, only 31 men managed to escape the sinking ship and swim to the shore of Anatahan. They were exhausted, wounded, and hungry, and had no idea where they were or what had happened to the war. The sailors were relieved to find Kikuichiro and Kazuko Higa on the island, who welcomed them and shared their food and shelter. The couple also taught the sailors how to hunt, fish, and farm on the island, and how to avoid the dangers of the volcano, the snakes, and the sharks. The sailors hoped to be rescued soon, but they had no radio, no boat, and no contact with the outside world. They were unaware that Japan had surrendered in August 1945 and that the war was over. Kazuko Higa was the only woman on the island and soon became the center of attention and attraction among the men. She was 37 years old but looked younger and prettier than her age. She was friendly, cheerful, and flirtatious and enjoyed the company of the men. She also had a secret: she was not married to Kikuichiro and had no loyalty to him. She was free to choose her lovers, and she did. The first incident of violence on the island occurred in October 1945 when the captain of the Tai Maru, who had been in charge of the sailors, was found dead in the water. He had been shot in the back of the head and his body had been dumped in the sea. The killer was never identified, but some suspected that it was Kikuichiro, who had been jealous of the captain's relationship with Kazuko. Others thought that it was an accident or a suicide or a revenge from another sailor. The truth was never revealed, but the death of the captain marked the beginning of a series of mysterious and bloody events on the island. The next incident occurred in December 1946, when 2 sailors were found dead with gunshot wounds in their chests. They had been killed by their own rifles, which had been rigged with wires and triggered by a tripwire. The killer was again unknown, but some suspected that it was Kazuko, who had been angry with the 2 men for mistreating her. Others thought that it was a trap set by Kikuichiro, who had been paranoid of the other men. The truth was again hidden, but the deaths of the 2 sailors increased the tension and fear among the islanders. In January 1947, the islanders received a message from the outside world. A US Navy plane flew over the island and dropped leaflets, informing them that the war was over and that Japan had surrendered. The leaflets also urged the islanders to surrender themselves and promised them a safe return to their homeland. The islanders were shocked and confused by the news and did not know what to do. Some wanted to surrender, but others refused. fearing that they would be executed or imprisoned by the Americans. They also did not trust the leaflets, thinking that they were a trick or a lie. They decided to stay on the island and wait for more information. The situation on the island became worse over time as the men continued to fight over Kazuko, who had changed her lovers several times. She had been involved with at least 6 men and had witnessed the deaths of 4 of them. She had also lied about the circumstances of their deaths, blaming them on accidents, suicides, or enemies. She had become the queen of the island, but also the source of its troubles. In June 1950, she decided to leave the island and secretly boarded a boat that had arrived from Saipan. She left behind a note saying that she was sorry for everything and that she hoped to see them again. After Kazuko left, the island became peaceful and the men stopped fighting. They realized that they had been living in a nightmare and that they had wasted their lives on the island. They also received more leaflets from the US Navy, confirming that the war was over and that they could surrender without fear. In June 1951, they finally agreed to surrender and waved white flags to a passing ship. They were rescued by the Americans and taken to Guam, where they were interrogated and debriefed. They were then repatriated to Japan, where they faced a new challenge, adjusting to a changed society that had moved on without them. Kazuko Higa also returned to Japan a month after the sailors. She had been living in Saipan, where she had married a local man and opened a small restaurant. She had also become a celebrity, as her story of surviving on an island with 32 men had spread through the media. She was interviewed by newspapers, magazines, and radio stations and was offered a movie deal. She was portrayed as a brave and beautiful woman who had endured hardship and tragedy on the island. But her fame was short-lived, as the sailors who had lived with her came forward and accused her of being a liar, a manipulator, and a murderer. They claimed that she had caused the deaths of several men and that she had betrayed them by leaving the island. They also disputed her version of the events and revealed the truth about the violence and the mystery on the island. Kazuko's reputation was tarnished, and she was shunned by the public. She retreated to the countryside, where she lived quietly with her husband until her death in 1990. The story of the Queen of Anatahan is a fascinating and tragic tale of human nature, survival, and isolation. It shows how a small island can become a microcosm of society with its own rules, norms, and conflicts. It also shows how a woman can wield power and influence over men, but also face the consequences of her actions. The story of the Queen of Anatahan is a true story, but it is also a legend, a myth, and a mystery. It is a story that has been told and retold by different people in different ways for different purposes. It is a story that raises questions but does not provide answers. It is a story that challenges us to think, to wonder, and to imagine. It is a story that will never be forgotten.